found lights till I found leaves to 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it. Still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The ways and winds still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The ways and winds still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The ways and winds still know His name. The waves and winds still know His name. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. One more time. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul. Let's just lift Him up one more time. Lord, we just praise You. Lord, we thank You that we know it's well with our soul. Lord, what You came and what You've done for us and lifted us out of that deep hole that we were in. Lord, I just praise You. Lord, I praise You. Jesus, we thank You. Amen. Isn't it good? Isn't it good?
Amen.
Amen. All right. I'm not going to take up any time. Slow everybody up. We're going to give it right to Regina. Let her teach tonight. You ready? Ready. We've been having a good time passing the book around. Amen. And I think this is Regina's second or third time. Yeah. We got to figure out who's next.
We definitely need to take on some more people. Well, I actually printed this off like a week ago and haven't looked at it since. Believe it or not. I read through a little part of it a while ago, and I was like, oh, this will be good. But really, it's a good message. I did read through it, and I did make notes, and I did, study it. But I just didn't want to dwell on it because I knew that I would overthink it if I did. But this is chapter 23 of the Battlefields of the Mind. We're talking about the wilderness mentalities. And this one is, I don't deserve God's blessing because I am not worthy. How many feel like that? About all of us, I think. Well, we're going to talk about Joshua. After Joshua had led the Israelites across the Jordan River into the Promised Land, there was something God needed to do before they were ready to conquer and occupy the first town, which was Jericho. The Lord ordered all the Israelite males to be circumcised, since they had not done this since they left Israel back 40 years ago. And they had been wandering in the wilderness all this time. And this required obedience and was to be a sign of their willingness to turn away from the fleshy, worldly ways and embark upon a new way of living for God. During this time, they built idols and all kinds of things out in the wilderness, turning their backs on God. And God just wanted them to turn their face back to Him. And this was an obedience thing that they needed to do to show God that, yes, we are going to follow you. And until they did that, they could not conquer anything. Just like we can't conquer anything without turning our eyes towards God. And after this was done, the Lord told Joshua that He had rolled away the reproach of Egypt from His people. A few verses later in chapter 6, the account begins of how God led the children of Israel to overcome and capture Jericho. Why did the reproach have to be lifted off of them first? And what is reproach? Well, reproach means blame, disgrace, shame. When God said that He would roll away the reproach of Egypt from the Israelites, He was making a point. Egypt represented the world. After a few years of being in the world and becoming worldly, we all need to roll away the reproach. But because of the things we have done and things that people have done to us, we have sort of a shame-based nature. We blame ourselves for things that have happened to us, things that we have done, and we just can't seem to, shake it off. And even though much of it might have happened to us when we were children, and there was nothing that we could do to, have deserved it, we still sort of let that hang over us. And I know a lot of us here have had things happen to us, or things we have done that we don't feel like we're worthy of God's forgiveness. But, long ago, for the longest, I believed that God could not possibly forgive me because of things that I, had committed, sins I had committed. And I'm sure all of y'all have done the same things. I've heard this many times as people have given testimonies that, sexual behaviors, drug and alcohol, lying, deceitfulness, multiple marriages, rape, all kinds of things, that we have on us. Especially the older we get, it's like it just add on. It's like a tumbleweed. We just keep on adding on, and we can't seem to lose it. It just keeps coming. But it just sort of spirals out of control after time. But by the grace of God, we are given the gift of salvation. And not through any action on our part. It's just because God gives us this unmerited favor. You know, He loves us that much. But God wants to give us grace, but Satan wants to give us disgrace. And disgrace is reproach. That is what it's talked about in the Bible. You know, we need to roll away the reproach that Satan puts on us. And you know, disgrace told me for years that I wasn't good enough. You know, I thought I wasn't worthy of God's help. You know, because I was doing things that I knew weren't godly, and I wasn't worthy of even stepping into a church. You know, I was one of those that said, the church, you know, roof will fall in if I go, you know, or somebody, I would go with my parents or something for Easter or something like that, and they go, I see the church roof didn't fall in, you know, but that's sort of how I was with the church, and, you know, I went almost 30 years without stepping foot into a church unless it was Mother's Day or Christmas or something like that, and I even went through a stage that I really didn't know if I believed in God. And that's scary, guys. You know, when you get to that point, it is really scary. And, you know, I was ashamed of myself and didn't really like myself. And I always had an excuse for everything. You know, somebody would say, "What you did at church?" "Oh, well, you know, this is the only time I think I gave him this one too, Bonnie and Jean, when I first started. This is the only time I have to do my house cleaning, and I've got this to do, that to do, you know, well, maybe next Sunday." "Oh, we had to go so-and-so, you know. This is the only Sunday, you know, time that they're having that, you know." There's excuse after excuse after excuse. And even whenever I quit doing drugs and alcohol, I still had that mashing down. Got a dog out there. But, you know, and after I quit doing drugs and alcohol and stuff, and I was still married. I thought I was happily married, you know. But because my husband still drank and still smoked pot and stuff like that, I used that as an excuse not to go. You know, I always had an excuse not to go. And it wasn't that, you know, I had an excuse to go. It's just I didn't want others to find out my little secrets. You know, I didn't want them to know that, you know, I had a bad marriage. I wanted them to think everything was wonderful, you know, all things were good, and that they would find out my secrets if I went to church because they would meddle. So, you know, I had finally when my second marriage finally failed, and, you know, another horrible failure on my part, as I thought, and I had nothing left, I finally fell on my knees and reached out to God. You know, it seems like it's when we're at our lowest that we reach out to God. And, you know, I had finally come to that conclusion that I couldn't do it on my own. You know, I needed somebody. And I knew that nobody else could help me but God. And that's whenever I realized there was a God. Because whenever you're all by yourself and you're on the floor sobbing, and what you're doing is saying, "Father, oh, Father, you know, help me. I don't know what to do." And, you know, this is Suicide Prevention Month. You know, and there's so many people out there that kill themselves for just a moment's thought of, "I'm not good enough." You know? But I'm telling you, God knows you're good enough. He puts you here. And you're good enough. You are good enough. But anyway, we can never be deserving of God's blessing. You can never be worthy of Him. You can only humbly accept and appreciate Him. You know, we can only be in awe of him and how good he is and how much he loves us. That's all we can do. So, you know, he's so good that he gave his only son for our salvation. But there are things that we keep, that keep you wandering in the wilderness. You know, there's those things out there like self-hatred, self-rejection, refusal to accept God's forgiveness, not forgiving ourselves. You got to forgive yourselves and move on. And not understanding righteousness through the blood of Jesus Christ. You know, some people never do quite understand that. They can't grasp it. But, you know, your minds need to be renewed concerning the right standing with God through Jesus. And not through your own, own works. Our problems undoubtedly come from how we feel about ourselves. Anyone you know who is walking in victory is walking in righteousness. They know God. Because you can look at these people and go, oh, I wish I was like that. And I'm sure all of you have met those people that, you know, they just seem so godly and everything, and you're going, why can't I be that way? But you know what? They probably look at you and say, why can't I be that way? We all look at each other, you know, we put these big thoughts about how we should be and stuff. God doesn't care about that. He cares about this. He cares about our hearts.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
And, you know, righteousness is being, you know, morally right. And it is, you know, is it that really that hard to follow Jesus? You know, is it that hard to do what God wants us to do? You know, all he wants us to be is good, virtuous, upright, decent, you know, honest people. Isn't that what you want everybody else to be to you? So why can't we be that to other people? I mean, that's what we need to do. That's sort of plain and simple, and it says it right in the Bible. You know, it tells you exactly what you need to do. And I know I don't deserve God's blessings, but I received them anyway, you know, and because I am a joint heir with Christ, you know, I'll never be, you know, deserving of God's blessings, but I do accept them. In Romans 8:17, it says, now if we are children, then we are heirs of God, and co-heirs with Christ, if indeed we share in his suffering, in order that we may also share in his glory. He earned them, and I get them by placing my faith in him. But in Galatians 4:7 it says, therefore you are no longer slaves, but a son, and if a son, then an heir by the aid of God through Christ. So are you a son or a slave? Are you an heir or a bondservant? You know, an heir is someone who is like handed something down from somebody passing away, and, you know, they just get the property as a gift. I mean, it's not anything you got to pay for. But a bondservant or a slave in the biblical sense is one who is weary from trying to follow the law. The term denotes burdensome toil and trouble. So, you know, many of us labor for years trying to be good to deserve what God wanted to give us freely by grace. And this is the wrong mindset. The nature of a gift is that it is free to the recipient. All they have to do is accept the gift. Salvation works the same way. You know, God through his word is offering salvation to all men, and everything as a free gift from his grace. According to Ephesians 2:8-9, the only thing someone needs to do by faith is accept the gift that God is offering. For it, and it says in Ephesians 2:8, it says, for it is by grace you have been saved, through faith, and this is not from yourself. It is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. And that's the whole thing. If you go out and you work your tail off, everybody seeing you do it, you see, look what I did. I'm a good person. I'm going to go to heaven. Well, that's not what God wants you to do. He wants to give you the gift. He just says you're saved. All you have to do is have faith that what he did will give you salvation. That, we're taught all of our lives that nothing's free. There's always a catch, strings attached. Experience tells us that we must deserve everything we get. If you have friends, you were told that you need to keep them by keeping them happy and, making them laugh. You have to do things to keep that friend. If you want a promotion for a job, you have to know somebody, know the right people, scratch backs and such. And it's sort of no wonder that everybody is sort of weary of the world. You constantly working, scratching people's backs and trying to do this, trying to do that. And the reproach of it lies heavy on us and definitely needs to be rolled away. And Hebrews 13:33, it talks about the Nephilims, the giants, the sons of Anak, who came from giants. And we were, this was the 12 spies that went in. Out of the 12, 10 of them said, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. The Israelites had reproach on them. The fact that they had negative opinion of themselves is seen in that that verse. Like I said, out of 10 of the 12 spies who went to scout out the promised land before the entire nation crossed over the Jordan, came back saying that the land was inhabited by giants who saw them as grasshoppers. So they were in their own eyes grasshoppers. They were little, and these guys were real big. They didn't have a chance. But, it just shows what they thought of themselves. That you need to be aware that Satan, if allowed, will fill your mind with all kinds of doubts and negative thinking on your own self. He began early building strongholds in our minds by negative thoughts and stuff. And I remember some of my earliest thoughts, and these are sort of funny because it's amazing what you think of when you're a little child. I was in kindergarten, and this little girl came up to me and said, "Ooh, you've got hairy arms." And I was like, and from then on, I always hid my arms. And I was ashamed of the way I looked. And, you start at a little bitty age with little silliness like that. Kids can be really, really mean. And I also remember when I got probably around 10 or 12, that's when you're starting to go into puberty and everything. You're supposed to look cute and everything, and, try to get the boys to look at you and stuff. And my mom always made my clothes. And I was so proud of my clothes because she made beautiful clothes. And I had a girl at school tell me, "Hey, you must be poor. You wear homemade stuff." And I was like, it just broke my heart, because then I felt like I was in poverty. So now I have hairy arms and I'm pulverized, and I'm like, oh, so I already have all these things going negative against me, and I'm not even 13, So I'm already going, wow, I'm not that good. And I became shy, Before that, I was not shy. And all of a sudden, I became sort of shy. And then I sort of became mean because all the segregation and stuff like that started happening. And we, went to a junior high. And then I found out that I was white. And it was like, now I'm hairy and I'm poor and I'm white, trash, you know? And it's like, it just keeps going. But that's what Satan does to you. It's sort of funny, but that's how it starts. That is how it starts. People are mean. Satan is mean. But, you know, small things like that, foul, negative thinking. Yes, they did. Yes. I was short also. I've got a whole list, but thank God. Thank God. You know, but fear of failure and rejection keeps people in the wilderness for most of their lives. You know, being slaves in Egypt for so many years and living under severe mistreatment had left reproach on the Israelites. It is interesting to note that almost none of the generation that originally came out of Egypt with Moses entered the promised land. You know, it was their children who went in. Yet God told them he had to roll away the reproach, you know, from them. So most had been born in the wilderness after their parents had left Egypt. How could they have had reproach from Egypt on them? You know, things that our parents can pass along to us. You know, even though we didn't live our parents' lives, the things that they went through can pass on to us. The things that their parents did passed on to them.
What other people see of those parents or knew of them,
Yes, passes on.
they speak it.
Yes.
They speak it.
You know, the attitudes, thoughts, behaviors, patterns can be inherited. You know,
I know what that family's like.
yes.
Let me tell you.
Yes.
Yeah, and it goes on and on.
Yes, it does. That generational, what is it? Curse, yes. That a wrong mindset that your parents had can become your mindset. The way you think about certain subjects can be passed on to you. And you won't even know that it happened. You know, my dad was a very opinionated person. You know, it was his way or no way. And he was very argumentative. Everybody's going, yeah, oh, I get that too. But yeah, my dad was very argumentative. And he was raised with a family of 5 boys that was raised by a dad with iron fist. If they even said something cross to each other, they'd better watch out because they was going to get backhanded and probably knocked out of a chair. Yeah, that's about how my grandfather was. He was a hothead German. But anyway, yeah, they were from the upper middle class, almost to high class type people. They were, yeah, my grandfather was an engineer, and they got about anything they wanted. They were spoiled, rotten, but ruled with the iron fist. And they all were real